I'm Dázon. Hey, and you're listening to Visible and Unseen, chronicling HIV in Black life, then, now, and next. We're amplifying stories and highlighting voices of Black folks in the movement. Some you know, and some you should know. Now let's jump in. Well, we are here. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Visible and Unseen, chronicling HIV in Black life, then, now, and next. Hey, CiCi, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm grateful for this conversation. How are you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And you look fabulous, by the way. Let's keep moving. We're going to dive right on in. I got some stuff I want to talk with you about, right? First, because this is sort of the scope of what I know. In your own lived experience, how has pregnancy and motherhood changed for Black women living with HIV?
Oh my goodness. Well, for those of you who don't know, my name is Ciara Covan. I was diagnosed with HIV when I was 20 in the rural South. And I can say that my pregnancy experience back in 2010 was totally different than the one that I just had in 2021. I birthed the baby. And it was with a sense back in 2010 that I should just be grateful for the fact that I was able to carry a child and give birth to a child vaginally, which I guess was big news back then because some people weren't doing it. They were still recommending C-sections for women who were giving birth. And so breastfeeding didn't come up in that conversation at all. So in 2021, I was able to advocate and really push for that to be an option for my child and I. So personally within my life, I see that shared decision making, informed decision making is seeping into, our doctor's appointments and stuff. But I think that is the biggest change that I've seen in the reproductive health of women who are living with HIV.
So you're saying you have seen a change in providers, in how they engage with you, how they deal with the diagnosis and with pregnancy differently. Can you talk a little bit about an experience? You had two pregnancies, 11 years apart. In addition to the breast and chest feeding piece, which I know you're going to get into a little bit more, what else would you say was just totally not the same from the first experience?
Oh my goodness. I felt everything was totally not the same. My location in this country it had an immense impact on my treatment. I know. Down south, I was in a rural part where there weren't options of providers, but having that experience here up north where there are multiple providers within this vicinity, so I had choices of where I could go. I think being a little more removed from, the beginning of this pandemic, 2021's pregnancy, it felt like I had more support from providers and community. I think that, I know that one time they were cautioning women living with HIV to not have children at all. And I can fortunately say that both of my pregnancies, I was able to go through that with the support. But definitely in 2021, it was sort of like, no, I'm going to have this baby, and which doctors, which providers are going to help me do that? And I found some radical teams to be able to help me do so.
That is awesome. And congratulations on that, by the way, because you have a most amazing, beautiful child. Both of your children are absolutely fabulous. And I'm grateful to you for going through that so that others can see and to share the story of going through that so that others can see and learn and know what it is and what it isn't to be pregnant and living with HIV and to become a mother in that time. So you've moved from being a person diagnosed with HIV and then going through the pregnancy stuff to doing the work, being a part of the movement itself. What does it mean to show up as a Black woman in your work?
Oh my goodness. Sometimes you have to yell. Sometimes you have cry. Sometimes you have to stump your feet. You have to remind people that you're still here. You have to remind people that no, might not be the image that you've seen of the ones that are impacted and affected by HIV, but we are here and living real lives. And this is what HIV is for me in my life. I work very hard to show up authentically as I am, Black woman from the hood, escaping poverty by, just a little bit. And that caretaker, the life that so many of us know, and bringing those into spaces with these people that sit up really high to remind them, we here and we need the support from you all to continue to thrive, continue to, I don't know how many people I connect with just in the work that I do, whether it's online or off. And many of them are not Black women, but how our stories impact and give courage and inspiration and motivation and that will to want to live is coming from, people that look like me. So I love when you say, if you fix it for a Black woman, you fix it for everybody, and I'm living it. So I show up for all of us in these spaces, but as a Black woman first.
Yes. What does that work look like for you day to day?
Oh, well, I am program manager at the Well Project, which is a nonprofit that serves women and girls across the gender spectrum who are living with HIV. So I get to manage programs that have a direct impact on women and girls who are living with HIV across I want to say world. We have like global ambassadors and global ambassadors and global relationships. So the world. And so a lot of our programming is around breast and chest feeding and HIV. We have sexual health programming. I run a monthly series called A Girl Like Me Live, where we sit and we talk with different community members about health-related topics for women living with HIV. I do a social media that I run on my own. I am just constantly showing up as a voice for other people who are living with HIV who may not feel that they have one or just haven't found it yet.
Yeah. And the system of support that allows you to do this, what does that look like and feel like?
Oh, it started with my family. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, they are the ones that gave me the courage to be able to face the world, because I know that I had folks that loved me. Y'all didn't have to accept me. They already had all the love that I needed. And once I felt that, then I knew that I was strong enough to go stand in front of the world because I had somewhere safe to retreat to. That safe space has now extended to women who are living with HIV all over this country, all over this world, my Well Project community, my online community. Like, I have expanded that I feel lifted up to be able to do the work that I continue to do on a daily basis.
Yes. And so how long would you say you've been doing the work in the movement?
I've been doing the work in the movement since I got diagnosed. I cried for 3 days. I got diagnosed in 2008. And at that moment, I made it my business to continue to educate my community. I learned as much. We were learning together because I was the only person that I knew that was living with HIV. And I knew that I was that for so many others. So as I learned, I'm coming back, I'm cautioning people to use condoms, and all of that started at a real grassroots on the ground. I'm going to speak at Boys and Girls Clubs on my own. I have a story. I need for folks to know that HIV is a real thing. How can I help? And it was in 2018 that I finally found the Well Project as a blogger, where my voice was able to just be leveraged, to a point that I could never I could never, express my gratitude for enough. Because now that the grassroots stuff that I was doing, which was impactful, and I need people to understand how impactful that is. You don't have to have your name up on billboards and next to other folks' names and presentations for your advocacy to matter. Every level of it is needed. And being able to testify to that, on my own, I would urge anyone to continue that path that you have forged or continue to forge for yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm so loving this part because I consistently want to learn from, especially Black women of all identities, but I especially want to learn what was that defining piece that you go from, I'm living my life here, whatever that is. And then I get an HIV diagnosis. And then from that point on, there's a before and after, right? And for you, the after took only 3 days and you end up doing whatever it took to be a part of this work. I imagine that this wasn't on your list of things you wanted to be when you grew up, right? Or what you wanted to do. I don't know what you imagined that you were doing before your diagnosis. My question now is, now that you're doing what you're doing, would you, if someone said, hey, I want you to do this, would you have done this? Or would you have been doing something else? How disruptive to your own plans for your life has the diagnosis been? And not the diagnosis, but deciding to join the work.
Oh, so for me, I'll speak personally for me. This is a real spiritual thing. This is real, HIV is another one of those things. And I am here. I'm here as a servant. I'm here to help my next brother, man. I'm here recognizing that my life is not just my own life. Like, that there is a light in me that it just shines and it's not fueled by my own power. So, other people, you look at other people's lives and you be like, I could never do that. Like, it couldn't be me. And sometimes it just end up being you. So then what you going to do? Me personally, I can't give God conditions on how I want to live here on this earth. Like, I'm not going to say, God, I only want to live if I'm HIV negative. I got that white picket fence and them kids that's acting perfect. Like, I'm not the one to give them conditions like that. So this is what it is. All right. And watch, y'all still going to watch me thrive and live my life because I understood what the mission was before we even got here. I've been diagnosed since I was 20. I had a very suicidal ideations, all of that, trying to do it. I actually, story's crazy, but that was prior to my HIV diagnosis. And then after, it was like, now I got something that's trying to take me out of here, but I want to live. I'm about to fight for this. So what I got to do? Teach me what's going on. I need to make sure I'm taking my medicine. I need to make sure that, I'm having certain conversations. Okay, cool. And then through that, so many other people are blessed. I'm able to go and, give other people hope when you want to give up. HIV isn't that first thing that comes to the front of my plate every day. It's other things like me trying pay bills or caretake for sick family members, children. What do I want to be when I grow up? Those are the things. It's not HIV. That's another thing that is manageable that you don't. That's not enough for me to be like, I'm going to give up. It could be disastrous for a lot of us. It could be that, but you find your community, find your support. You're not out here alone.
The gems, the gems, the gems. They're so special. I'm going to ask you for one very intentionally, because what you've just described, quite frankly, is not just acceptance of the situation. It is an intentional embracing of your experience, and I think that is super powerful and extremely inspiring. From your story, however you want to slice it, dice it, and serve it back up. From your story, what do you most want people to take away from our conversation?
What would I like people to most take from this? Live authentically in who you are. Don't make nobody make you feel bad. Don't make nobody feel like you have to conform to anything you were created, especially how you are for a reason. I am a human, you a human, and our opinions of each other at some point have to cancel each other out. So live your life.
I love it. I love it. Live your life. That's what we're saying. And I know that while we're talking about an epidemic that's been around for 40 something years, and you're not even halfway into that, right? But becoming a part of this legacy of Black folks, there's still folks that are coming behind you, or there's still folks that are learning. It's not about age, it's about where we are in the timing of our experiences. But in terms of how we're growing this work and what's happening in the future of HIV, from your perspective, who's next? Who are you passing the baton to?
Oh, I got a couple ladies in mind, but it's like I've got to really become enthralled in this breast and chest feeding work, which was by accident. But I can see other moms who are now coming out and saying, "Hey, I breastfed," or "I'm interested in breastfeeding," and continually keeping an eye out for those women who are like, "I'm ready to tell my story. This was what my experience was," and being able to leverage those women and their voices and experiences, or webinars, events such as the perinatal roundtable that we just did with UCSF, and bringing those voices in so that these experiences get out there. It's a few that I have in mind. We work together.
I love this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far into the weeds of it, but I think it's important because when people think about HIV and they think about the things that they have to consider from a transmission or from acquiring HIV standpoint, they think about sex, they have to think about drug use, they have to think about sharing needles in that context, they have to think about substance use, they have to think about being clear with if they're in surgery, that they have to inform people, those kinds of things that folks are connected to. I don't think that it's everyday conversation about what this issue is around breastfeeding. So just, why is this a thing that you're working on in the context of HIV and motherhood? What is this about breast or chest feeding that is so compelling for you that you're actually, one, talking about it a lot, and two, doing the work, teaching others about it? What is it that people need to know?
I think that when we address breast and chest feeding for folks who are living with HIV, that it would benefit all people who are living with HIV, because we're talking about bodily autonomy and our right to that as people who are living with HIV. Breastfeeding is one of the ways that HIV is transmitted, but we have enough research not done here, which is what we're really advocating for. There's research that suggests that when a mom is undetectable, that the risk of transmission is less than 1%. Even with that knowledge, the United States have been cautioning, do not breastfeed, and that is what providers were following up until January 31st of this year, where the Department of Health and Human Services updated their feeding guidelines, the perinatal guidelines, in the infant feeding section within that, where they are now supporting if a parent comes to you who's living with HIV who wants to breast or chest feed, that you should support them to do so. And the biggest point to me that was updated was the fact that Child Protective Services is not a response to a parent wanting to breast or chest feed, because previously that is a thing, but to have it outlined that that is not a route that you should take is important, because there is one other way that people living with HIV are being criminalized.
Okay, so you just brought in a whole lot there with that. It's a issue of bodily autonomy. It's an issue of human rights. It's an issue, excuse me, of equity and equality and justice. And it's also an issue of your own natural progression into motherhood, right? Or into parenthood. if you're a person who gives birth. And so you've brought in criminalization, which adds on to stigma or comes from a certain kind of stigma. So you've added that in. This is an intersectional issue, breastfeeding. And that's why you're saying it's so important for anybody living with HIV to understand what this struggle is. And now I also understand very clearly why the people that you would pass the baton on to would be other folks who have experience and who have something to share around this question of around this question and need to inform around breastfeeding or chest feeding for people who are living with HIV. Did I get that right?
You got it right. You got it right, because our experiences are vast across this country. To this day, I got called yesterday that we're getting a threat from down in South Carolina right now, that they're threatening to call on a mom. Like, and it doesn't end, and the news has to get out, and we need to be engaging in shared decision making when it comes to our care. Like, you don't just get to tell me or any other person what they're going to do. That is not the approach that should be taken when it comes to the care of any person.
Wow. So even with the guidelines, of course, I don't know why I'm acting like I'm shocked. Even with the guidelines, there are people who are inserting themselves, their personal ideas, their personal biases, or their provider biases is really what they are, right? Into telling others what they should and should not do with their bodies, even when the science is saying something different nowadays.
Yeah, because you know how them folks do. So now I'm not going to get you, because I can't get you on breastfeed, and now I'm going to get you on something else. I'm going to initiate a call off of the basis of something else. I'm going to do it this way. We had one provider who refused to give the baby, prescribe the medication for the baby afterwards, and that's one component of it. So now we're sabotaging plans in other ways. So I wish I had enough arms to reach each situation, because it's a lot. And that's why we need the help of community providers, people living with HIV, social workers, CPS, like bringing together all of these folks, because a woman's bodily autonomy and what she chooses to do with her baby, at some point you gotta trust the mom, and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, well, we're back to that. Trust Black women. We're going to start there and end there in every conversation I am a part of, without a doubt. I mean, it's just a clear thing as far as I'm concerned. CiCi, you are amazing. The work that you do is amazing. I'm sure there are lots of people who are grateful for you, even if they don't know you or know what you do, quite frankly. And so I don't know what this is, but I'm really wanting to offer up thank you to you, and to also honor what you're doing in the midst of this epidemic, even though it's something that's been around since the beginning of this epidemic. It's finally being addressed in a way where community is in the lead, and community is in charge, and community is involved and engaged. And that's what you represent for us. And I can see for the future of people who are diagnosed with HIV and are able to give birth, that the work that you're doing is improving the quality of life and the opportunity for a better life for them and their children. So thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome sauce. You rock. That's it. You rock like a star, Just amazing. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for listening to Visible and Unseen. I'm your host, Dázon, and I'm also the founder and president of SisterLove Incorporated. To find out more about this podcast and the work we do at SisterLove, visit us online, www.sisterlove.org, or follow us on Instagram at SisterLove Inc. And tune in next time for another episode of Visible and Unseen. And much appreciate love.